Imagine this. You've been cursed. What if I told you there was an ancient, step-by-step professional handbook for how to deal with it? Well, today, we're diving into one of the world's oldest and most detailed magical texts ever found.
So, really think about it for a second. What would you actually do if you were 100% convinced that a witch had cursed you?
Well, guess what? Nearly 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, that wasn't some hypothetical fear. It was a real, serious threat. And, believe it or not, they had a surprisingly professional solution for it.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this solution, we've got to take a step back. We need to step into their world, which, let me tell you, operated on a completely different set of rules than ours.
And here's the biggest difference right off the bat. For us, magic, religion, science, they're all in separate boxes, right? Not for the Mesopotamians. For them, it was all the same thing. Magic was their science. It wasn't some fringe, irrational belief. It was the fundamental physics of their universe, explaining everything from why you got sick to why the stars moved across the sky.
So if magic is real, then guess what? Curses are real too. And we're not talking about just a vague feeling of bad luck. No, a curse was a terrifying, tangible threat. It could mean a sudden, devastating illness. It could mean your business completely collapses overnight, or that you're suddenly shunned by your entire community. And maybe worst of all, it meant you lost the protection of your personal god. You were totally alone and vulnerable.
So if you're living back then and all this is happening to you, who do you call? You can't just go to a regular doctor. You hire a specialist, a real expert trained to fight fire with fire, to use powerful, legitimate magic to fight back.
And this professional had a name, the Ashipu. Now, don't picture some shady back alley sorcerer. No. This was a highly respected, state-sanctioned professional. Think of them as part priest, part doctor, and, I love this part magical attorney. They were literally going to represent you in a kind of cosmic court to get this curse overturned.
And who was the defendant in this cosmic court? The Kashatu, the witch. And to be clear, in their view, a witch wasn't just someone using bad magic. They were committing a crime. They were using illegal, antisocial magic to deliberately harm someone. Witchcraft was seen as a genuine offense, like a kind of metaphysical attack that could literally unravel your whole life.
Okay, so this brings us to the Ashipu's ultimate weapon, and it wasn't just some one-off spell. It was a massive, incredibly sophisticated ritual, a complete, step-by-step handbook for utterly destroying a witch's power. It was called the Maqlu.
The name Maqlu literally means burning, and yeah, that gives you a pretty big clue about what's involved. This thing was an all-night ceremony. We're talking an epic production. The whole procedure was laid out across 9 cuneiform tablets. 8 of those tablets were filled with nearly 100 incantations that had to be recited perfectly. And the 9th tablet, that was basically the director's script, the stage directions telling the Ashipu exactly what to do step by step. And you couldn't just do this whenever you felt like it. Oh no, timing was everything. The Maqlu had to be performed at a very specific time, at the very end of the month of Abu, which for us is like late July or early August. This was seen as a liminal time, a time that's neither here nor there. The barriers between our world and the netherworld were thought to be at their absolute thinnest. Now that made the cursed person vulnerable, sure, but it also meant the witch and her evil spirits were vulnerable too. It was the perfect time to strike back.
So what did this all-night ritual actually look like? I mean, how did an Ashipu go about systematically dismantling a curse?
Well, the whole complex ceremony can actually be broken down into 3 main acts. Act 1, the most dramatic part, was all about burning figurines of the witch. Act 2 was about cleansing and protection, using ritual smoke to purify the person and their home. And the third and final act involved water to wash away every last trace of the evil.
And this is so important to understand. The burning of the figurines wasn't just symbolic voodoo doll stuff. It was framed as an actual legal proceeding in that cosmic court we talked about. The sun god and the fire god were called on to act as divine judges. So by burning an effigy of the witch, the Ashipu wasn't just hoping it would work. He was carrying out a divine sentence, legally and permanently destroying her power. Case closed.
And this whole idea of using physical objects for magical protection, it was everywhere in their society. I mean, everywhere. A king, for example, would have these monumental stone creatures called Lamassu guarding his palace gates. A regular person, on the other hand, couldn't afford that, so they'd bury small clay figurines of protective gods or dogs under their doorstep. The scale is totally different, right? But the magical principle? It's exactly the same.
Okay, now you're probably thinking, this sounds incredibly detailed. How on earth do we know all of this stuff from thousands of years ago? Well, the answer is just an amazing story of scholarly detective work that's been going on for over a century.
You see, for the longest time, we didn't have the complete Maqlu. Scholars knew it was this super important text, but all they had were thousands of little broken fragments of cuneiform tablets, just sitting in museum drawers all over the world. It was like trying to solve a massive, ancient jigsaw puzzle, but with most of the pieces missing and no picture on the box.
So for decades, the go-to academic version of this ritual was put together by a scholar named Gerhard Meyer back in 1937, and he based his work on just 46 known fragments. I mean, that was a monumental achievement at the time, but it was still just a tiny fraction of the whole thing. Then, fast forward to 2015, a scholar named Zvi Abush, after over 40 years of his own painstaking work, published his new definitive edition. And get this, he had managed to find, translate, and piece together over 221 fragments. For the first time, the full, continuous, 9-tablet ceremony was revealed. Just think about that jump. From 46 fragments to over 221. That leap represents almost 80 years of incredible detective work, of scholars hunting through museum archives, identifying these tiny pieces, translating them, and figuring out how they all fit together to rebuild this ancient masterpiece.
And that work is still going on today, but now with a really cool high-tech twist. You've got projects like the Electronic Babylonian Library using advanced computer algorithms. They digitally scan all these fragments and have the AI look for matches. So they're essentially using supercomputers to solve this ancient puzzle faster than any human ever could.
And what's just absolutely wild is that the core ideas in the Maqlu have survived for literally thousands of years. Even today, in some modern Assyrian folk traditions, you can see these incredible echoes of the ancient ceremony. Burning charcoal for healing, lighting incense for cleansing, sprinkling holy water to wash away negativity. The specific tools might have changed, but those fundamental ideas, purification by fire, by air, by water, they've endured all this time.
So why? Why was this belief system so powerful, so long-lasting? Well, that scholar, Zvi Abush, argues it served a really critical psychological purpose. Think about it. When something terrible happened to you, believing in witchcraft meant it wasn't your fault. It wasn't some personal failing. No, it was the work of an outside evil force, a witch. That belief shifted the blame, and more importantly, it gave the person a concrete, active path forward to fix the problem through this ritual.
And that really leaves us with a final pretty powerful thought, doesn't it? The Mesopotamians had this incredibly detailed, sophisticated system for pinpointing an external enemy to blame for all the random, chaotic, painful parts of life. And it just makes you wonder, what are the witches we blame today?